Well, it's Friday, boys and girls. And if you're hearing my voice, that means we had a successful live event and we didn't get canceled. That means Chayton hasn't left Mexico and he's here with me now. What's going on, boss man?
Nothing much besides some technical issues I was having when you started the introduction. But I feel like the government is trying to get this stopped before it even premieres.
You did that purposely, didn't you?
No, I didn't. I was actually I was trying to go down.
So, what are we talking about today, boss man?
Oh yes, we are talking about the last president not named Biden, and that is WWE Hall of Famer Donald J. Trump.
So let me ask you, everybody knows that I'm a super conservative and you lean more liberal. We've talked about this. But what is your opinion of Donald Trump? Before we get into his politics, as a man.
Well, to be honest, I always found him entertaining. As someone who probably would have never heard of him if not for wrestling, because he was, of course, the WrestleMania 4 and 5 was hosted in Trump Plaza. Later on, of course, the Battle of the Billionaires at WrestleMania 23 in 2007, where I was a wee little 12-year-old watching one of my favorites at the time, Bobby Lashley, wrestle Umaga. It's Stone Cold.
Umanga.
And, of course, Donald Trump has the honor of being one of the top 3 worst sellers of the stunner of all time. But besides that was like most of my knowledge of, besides media, like movies and like other stuff he was a part of. I knew about, what was the show he did? The Apprentice, right?
Yeah.
I remember that. That's probably the other thing I knew of him from, and knew like his business stuff and all that. So I didn't really become too knowledgeable about him really until around the time he was announcing he was going to run for presidency. Now, in the household at the time, and I'll say this even like and all that because it is connected to this. My ex and me, we were on 2 different sides of the camp. Now, granted, she was Latina, so it was that she didn't like about the whole border thing. So she was wanting Hillary. I wanted Trump because honestly, I despise Hillary. I prefer her husband. What do you call it? So I was basically, due to the lesser of 2 evils, I was pro Trump. And so I actually would say if he gets elected, we're going to move to Canada. So I kept an eye out. I watched the late night show with Stephen Colbert. It was some of the most entertaining stuff during this whole thing. Was keeping up with it. When election night happened, I was coming in. I was up. My mom and my ex were asleep. And I was keeping up with the polls and all that stuff. And as soon as they said I literally went to my mother, first person I went to, and told her, hey, Mom, Trump became president. Her reaction was, oh my God. I went over to my ex and I joked to her. I said, hey, babe, pack your bags. We're moving to Canada. Even I was going by what she wanted. I was like, we're moving to Canada. She's like, what are you talking about? Trump became president. You said we're moving to Canada. I always wanted to go to the place where Bret Hart was from. And newsflash, we never went to Canada. But yeah, that was I was the only one in that household that was actually kind of was interested in what happened. So that's basically my brief history of not only the election part, but also my knowledge of Trump prior to the election.
That could be a turning point for you, to be honest with you. Like we talked about how you have changed and you've grown up. And I'll give you a brief synopsis of my political past as far as following politics. I grew up in a very moderate household, and I don't mean like politically moderate. I mean we had meager means. We're poor, for lack of a better term. Low income family, but which is normal for being the son of an immigrant and a low income other side of the family. And I was always taught that if you're poor, you're a Democrat. That was the brainwashing, and I call it that now. and I want to make it clear because we've been leaning towards this. This is the crescendo, right? This is the first time we've gone straight into some shit like this instead of building up to it or having a conversation that kind of leaned into religion or politics. But and I hope y'all like the new look, by the way.
Oh yes. What better way to show it with this episode?
But I went for years thinking that Bill Clinton was the end all be all as far as presidents because I was fucking a kid. I remember I was in elementary school when Bill Clinton became president back in the 90s. I was listening to fucking SPM and Tupac and shit like that, and was when I really got into like the southern rap scene. Shout out to Paul Wall, Bun B, and all those rappers. But I thought that because of Bill Clinton, the things are going to get better for us poor people. And it took me a long time, and I like to say this to others, and they say, you can criticize me all you want. This is my opinion, not Chayton. So if you draw your fucking pitchforks on me, I feel like when you're a kid, you're gullible enough to believe the Democratic side of things. And when you become an adult and you really are making your own money and you're busting your ass for your living, you become a conservative. And I watched as Bill Clinton was president, and he did some great things. But if you look back, a Republican and Ronald Reagan set a lot of those things in motion. It was shortly after Clinton. We had W, Texas native, who I don't think was a bad person. I don't think he was a bad president, but he was led astray by his vice president, and he was basically made to do things. Because if you notice at the end of his presidency, he really tried to turn things around, but it was too little too late. Then we had Barack Hussein Obama, who put this country through hell by trying to put money into the country that we didn't have. Obamacare, being someone who's worked in healthcare before, one of the worst ideas I've ever seen. Look at it. You don't fucking believe me, go look at it.
Like and literally when he was reelected, it was literally like election day was literally a couple of weeks before my 18th birthday. So I couldn't, and I have not voted since, like I did not vote during I don't think my ex would have even allowed me to go vote. This is how different I was back then. I don't even think because she knew who I would have voted for. And again, to be at that time, I was only like even though I was a fan of Trump in terms of like stuff I've seen him in and all that other stuff, I'm talking like I mainly would have voted against Hillary. I don't know if anybody else would have run, I would have felt differently at the time. I always said the game between Hillary and Trump was over because Trump had something that Hillary didn't have, and that was the gift of gab. I said they should have put Jesse Ventura up for presidency.
And I'm going to build to that as well, right? So yeah. Barack Obama, I watched him be inaugurated, I watched his announcement, I watched his victory speech, and I watched as conservatives, though they were upset, they were not happy about the victory, they accepted it. You don't believe me? Go back. This is all fucking historical fact. You can look back, and there were plenty of pissed off conservatives. Absolutely. They wanted, there was the fucking whole Tea Party movement. There was the people that wanted to see his birth certificate. They threw fits. That's fine. I get that. But there wasn't riots in the street. There wasn't rage. There wasn't all this negativity. There were people that didn't agree with it, but it was what it was. And Barack Hussein Obama was allowed to serve his 2 terms as, in my opinion, one of the worst presidents in all history. That's how I feel. Okay.
And just to clarify for any idiots out there, probably, no, it's not because he's black.
Has nothing to do with it. I'm Hispanic.
I just like, how people are. They like.
Oh, absolutely.
I agree with that term. Like, I will even say this. Before, I don't mean to cut you off, but I will say this regarding that. It was the same way I felt about Trump when he got elected. Mind you, I was what was it, 2008? So I was like 14 or so when I was 13, 14. I was literally, even then, I thought he's going to get assassinated because there's going to be some people who don't like that there's a black president.
I agree with you. But my thing was this. I also, and I openly admit this, I voted for Obama. Because again, there was a time and place where I believed, and he had the fucking, look, I'll say it this way, and I've always put it this way. Barack Obama was a showman, man. The man could talk, and I would drink. I would have a beer with him any day. Even now, I would drink with Obama. Have a drink with Obama just to sit down and pick his brain, because the man, as far as a public speaking and charisma, there's nobody since John F. Kennedy Jr. that was able to do and convey a message the way he did it. He just did it. He did it. Remember, he was low. He was losing in the polls, and he came back and beat Hillary the first time. So. Yeah. That happened. The 8 years after him happened. People got stimulus check. It was just not for me. And I look back, it was horrible. It was a horrible 8 years.
Not stimulus checks, right? Or what stimulus checks they were back then?
They were giving those stimulus checks back then. I remember because I got a few.
Oh, okay.
So,
yeah, I didn't know that.
So when the election came up, and it was going to be, it was intended, and I know the original party, the Republican Party, was going to try to push for Jeb. They wanted they wanted a third Bush in the office, because you had fucking George Bush Sr., George Bush Jr., and they were going to push for Jeb, former Florida politician. He had everything to go, and this fucking crazy orange son of a bitch rolled down an escalator, and he decided, you know what? I have put money towards these politicians. I have done this. I've done that. And you can't seem to get the job done. Much like fucking Thanos at the end of the first, or one of the Marvel movies when he came out, reached his hand.
War, yeah.
Huh?
Avengers Infinity War.
No, not Infinity War. When he reached into a vault.
And Age of Ultron.
Grabbed his gauntlet and said, fine, I'll do it myself. Donald Trump started his campaign by himself, and he did the unthinkable. He put Jeb Bush in his place. He put Marco Rubio in his place. He had an effect on all of these politicians and showed them the Republican Party as it was not going to work. The Republican Party was no longer the party for the people. It was a party of rich fat cats who were getting over. And who better to know the system than a rich fat cat himself, who is not a politician, but a businessman. And he did the unthinkable. He beat Hillary Clinton. And the moment I know that he beat her was they were on stage, and she went off on a tirade saying how Donald Trump had used the tax code to finagle his way and save money and not have to pay millions of dollars in taxes. And she thought she had him dead to rights. And the man looked her in the face, looked the audience in the face, and said, you wrote the tax code. If you wanted to change it, if you didn't want Donald Trump to get over, and I kind of like how he talks about himself in a third person at times. He's a cocky son of a bitch. Never denied that he was. But the man came out and said, if you didn't want Donald Trump to get over on the tax code, then why didn't you change it? I'll tell you why you didn't change it. Because a lot of your donors and your friends use the same tax code that I do. She had no response for that because it was true. And he started to speak to blue collar America. I'm going to go off subject here, and I'm going to talk about the moment I became a conservative. I was looking at my paycheck, and I was working under a very, very wise man. He sat down with me, and he said, what's wrong? I was like, every day they're taking more and more from a check. And he looked at me and goes, you know why, right? We started to talk, and he asked me, what political party was I with? And I said, well, I'm a libertarian. At the time, I was a libertarian because Obama was pissing me off. It was a weird fucking time for me. And he said, well, that's a damn mistake. You know what it means to be a Republican? And he went on, and I'm not going to bore you with the semantics, but at the end of the day, what it meant is that a man like me who breaks his back every day, goes to work, pays his taxes, gets to keep a little more in my pocket. That I don't have to give to government fucking programs, that I don't have to deal with all this bullshit, and the states have more control. And at the end of the day, me, a blue-collar man who earned every dollar that he's ever earned, could have my money back. And that's all conservatism is. It has nothing to do with who's in the office. To be a conservative just means that you want to get your fair share and that you don't feel like you should have to pay back for everybody else's mistakes. That you shouldn't have to hand out to everybody. You know, in the last episode, we talked about a guy that I saw that he was homeless and he was still working at a job. I mean, you remember that conversation?
Yeah.
And that he busted his ass for a couple of years, and after losing money in the stock market, he got his way back. But see, that, believe it or not, even as a homeless man, he was a conservative as well. So I watched Donald Trump. And I loved his message. And I was a conservative at the time. And my, much like you, ex significant other had a problem because she was one of those people that wanted to help everybody. But you know what? She was also hitting dime on the back door. She was the one fucking the system. She was the one getting fucking shit. And I'll tell you this because it's true. She would fuck with her fucking hourly rate and say that she had more dependents because she could play the system. Fucked me on my taxes years later when we got divorced, but that's a whole nother story. But she was always interested in getting one over on other people, but then saying that we should help everyone else. Just not as long as it's her dime. And that's what a lot of these rich fat cat motherfuckers do. They sit there and they play a propaganda game where they try to make you feel like you should feel guilty for fucking giving because you want to keep the coin in your pocket. Oh, it's okay. You can donate a little bit. When you have fucking $50 million in the bank, it's really easy to fucking give away money, isn't it? But when I fucking am working on a fucking minimum wage job, busting my ass, fucking can't even get up because I'm working so many hours just to make ends meet, I'd like to keep a little of my change. And Donald Trump represented that to me. You know, if you don't mind, I'm going to go on a tangent about his presidency, if you're okay with that.
Yeah, go ahead.
While he was president, I watched a man who never took a dime, never got paid because he already had money. And he made it very clear he was never going to take a paycheck from the White House. And he didn't go back and look at it. And to quote one CM Punk, stop me when I'm telling lies. I saw a man who would leave with Air Force One or leave on a chopper at fucking 7:30 in the morning when they would show him because they were always up his ass and not come home till 2 or 3 in the morning, working deals, bringing peace to the Middle East, which is something we joked about as kids. A little too much for you because you were young when that whole joke came around. But he brought peace. He did the impossible, bringing peace to the Middle East. He destroyed the caliphate. The man destroyed terrorism in most of its forms. He befriended fucking Vladimir Putin, Kim Jong-un, and President Xi of China. He understood that these men were powerful. He understood that they were a threat. But what weakens a threat? Strength. Strength. All day long. I watched this man brought this economy back, brought the military back, was working his ass off to make America the superpower it was. I watched a man, and people may criticize me, was trying to build a wall, which again, people criticized him for building a wall. Even the Pope himself said, how dare you build a wall when you're surrounded in Israel by a fucking wall? And that's the Pope. How the fuck is a Pope surrounded by a giant wall, but we can't have a wall protecting our borders? How is it okay for Canada to protect? You know how hard it is to get into Canada? Speaking of which, you wanted to go to, your ex wanted you to go to Canada. Do you know how hard it is to get into Canada?
I'm sure pretty hard.
Very fucking hard. But illegal immigrants can come across this country and I'm going to say it, rape, pillage, and plunder just to take their income and send it back to a country that it's on its own ass, that people only become president in Mexico so they can fill their pockets by lining the pockets of cartels, watching children be sold into sex trafficking. Not even that, just that, but used to sell their tiny little innocent organs because they're more precious than gold. I watched a man who stood against this tyranny. I watched a man who busted his ass for 4 years and accomplished more in that 4 years than many presidents before him. Not since Ronald Reagan and before him had I seen someone work as hard as he did and take so much shit, but never run from the fucking cameras. He took all the hate and he sucked it in and laughed because he knew, and he made his gestures, and he was a cocky shit and said, we have the best this, we have the best that. But back then you could stand on that. I watched a man go through hell, and then when running for re-election, in my opinion, dealt a shitty fucking hand. When all of a sudden mail-in ballots became an issue. When all of a sudden the pandemic, which he tried to prevent and help by closing off our borders from China, by closing off our borders from outside interference, but he was called a xenophobe and a racist. When we come to find out later, much later, that if we had followed that plan, many lives would have been saved.
I said this, like I live near an Air Force base, and when they started bringing people to the Air Force base with, again, not that far, like literally I could walk about like 15 minutes and I'm already looking at the Air Force base.
Well, speaking of that, even more so, a man who, in an amazing act, developed and helped develop, which Biden tries to take fucking credit for, the COVID-19 cure.
Yeah.
That was him. The beautiful thing about him was he was never trying to force it on anybody. He was giving people options. And yes, he made goose and said stupid things and whatnot because he was smart enough to know that he wasn't smart enough to be everything.
Yeah.
He got the best people he could around him. And what did a lot of these people do? They turned on him on a dime after he brought back the Republican Party to a fucking mainstay. He made it something tangible, something to believe in again. And he lost the presidency and he left. And before we get into the other things of the future, and I know I've gone on a tangent, and I appreciate you giving me this opportunity. I watched a good man, and in my opinion, an asshole, 100%.
Yeah.
Grab him by the pussy. Yeah. But that was locker room talk. I get that. But a good man, in my opinion, with good children, with good stock, with a immigrant wife that he loved, with a son, a young son that he was trying to raise properly, be vilified and treated like shit. But we don't talk about that. We talk about his tweets. We talk about his comments. We talk about the allies he made trying to better, all on the stance of a simple phrase: make America great again.
Yeah, and also something else that he did, I've always defended when you mentioned about the pandemic, not only about the cure, but also when a lot of us were out of a job because of it. Like, of course, I was out of a job during that period. Like I was worried for a little bit. So I told the story about maxing out my cards and all that, and probably my credit was shit because of that. But because I was trying to make sure I was at least up to speed with some of my bills because I didn't know how long it was going to be and when it was going to be, when I was going to get substantial money to take care of my like rent and all that other stuff. But he not only took care of us with the cure, but he took care of us with the financially. Sending even to the point where even after we were not even working, a lot of us were working again, still sending those stimulus checks like every so often. Like,
See, and then again, he gets vilified for that, and people try to say the economy was fucked, but he was keeping it alive. But it wasn't him that continued the stimulus checks. He was at a point where he was cutting it off because it was time for America to go back to work, and then his successor decides to come in and continue forking money into the fucking system. That creates
why we've been in a quote unquote recession since.
But up to this point, before we get to the more recent stuff, that is the man I saw. Now, I didn't look. I'm not one of those people who just watches one side of the spectrum. I watch more. I watch conservative, but I also watch liberal television, which you can't miss liberal television because it's everywhere.
Agreed.
If you look at the fucking way things work, you got 10% less than that it leans conservative, and then you have the other 90% telling you you're wrong. And I'm sorry. Again, let me know when I'm telling lies. Now,
steal my line that I stole from somebody else.
What drives me nuts is, yes, I'm not saying the man is perfect. He's not my fucking Messiah. But the man had definite good ideas, wholesome ideas. His delivery was shit. And if I could change anything about him, I'd take his fucking phone away and not let him tweet.
Yeah.
But then after the whole fucking debacle that was the 2020 election, you try to pin an incident on January 6th on him, saying that he didn't support this, he didn't support that. Show me once where he came out and said, burn the motherfucker down. He told his supporters, you can protest, but let's do it peacefully. He never once came out and said to fucking raid the Capitol.
Yeah, let's go raid it. He never and that's the thing. I've always said this. I've actually had conversations with my mother about this. Because again, we're like, she's not like a very political person, but she's pretty much anti-Trump, and especially after the Capitol thing. I've always told her this. I've said they did that on their own free will.
Not only that, but they knew that something was coming. Oh, Nancy Pelosi knew something was coming, and she didn't do shit.
Yeah.
On top of that, Capitol Police were shown on camera. Thank you very much, Tucker Carlson, for finding getting the actual raw footage and putting it out there for the public purview. Capitol Police were letting people in. Do you know that there was, I believe, one casualty in that? And she was a conservative woman who fell through a window and she was shot to death. She was from Texas. She was a former service woman. She worked for our military. And she was gunned down, as far as I know. Do I think that it should have happened? No. I think it was an atrocity. Do I think it is the equivalent of 9/11? No. And for people to make this narrative that this one man contributed and said it was a terroristic act, that it was the same as the Twin Towers falling and these innocent lives dying and people dying years and years later due to the complications of the fucking things they inhaled. You're going to tell me that January 6th is the same equivalent to that? You could look in the mirror and tell me that was equivalent to that?
Well, let's also not forget the like going back to when he got elected. I remember like there was videos of like an elderly man getting pulled out of his car and gang attacked and beaten up by people.
And that's exactly what I was waiting. That's exactly what I was waiting for you to beat up. Now we're going to go rewind. Barack Obama was elected and conservatives were upset, correct?
Yeah.
Did anybody get beaten to death because they wore a fucking Barack Obama t-shirt?
Not that I'm aware of.
Did anybody fucking set fire to buildings because Barack Obama became president?
Not that I'm aware of.
Did colleges have to have mental health days and pizza parties for their students because Barack Obama was elected president?
Not that I'm aware of.
So let's reverse that. Did all of those things happen when Donald Trump was elected president?
Oh, fuck yeah.
So show me, please, how that is fair. Anybody who's not a conservative, anybody who just hates the man because he has orange skin and they don't understand the Rubik's Cube that is his hair, tell me how that's fair.
Like it became like you didn't feel safe saying that you voted for him. You know, nowadays I just don't give a like. Even though I didn't technically vote for him, I've said if I went and did, I would have. And I hold no fear about that because I'm like thinking do something because I'm like thinking shit like just because again freedom of speech.
And I'll tell you,
like
look,
saying you vote for Trump is worse than saying racist or homophobic slurs to some people.
I am 6'5". At the time I met you, I was 257 pounds of man. I was bigger when Trump got elected, and I was afraid to tell people that I voted for Trump. I want that to sink in. I want that someone who's as boisterous as I am now, then built into a coward because they have a political preference. Tell me how that's fair. Fear that my boss or my employer might look at me differently because I voted for a Republican, but not just any Republican. What people would call the devil. So who of us here, and I'm looking at you, has been vilified so much that they were called the devil?
Yeah. Oh no! Now I gotta get a orange tan and.
Well, tell me this: how did that feel? Before we get in that heavier shit, I'm going to ask you, as man to man, how did it feel when you knew people were afraid to acknowledge your existence, to acknowledge that maybe that you weren't a bad guy?
Oh yeah, that was like that was in a way like when it was very similar where people said, "Oh, I don't think Chain's it."
But what happened? What happened when they said that?
They fucking got filleted, basically.
And that is the smallest, most minute little fucking population in this fucking world. Like 20 people at the most. Imagine being the president of the United States and being vilified like that.
Shit, I couldn't even imagine that.
and he never fucking shook. Talk about balls.
Yeah.
I've never spoken so freely. And you know what? I'm going to say it right here, right now. And I know I'm being more boisterous on this one because I'm passionate about it. Thank you, my friend. Thank you for giving me the courage to speak so freely again. It's been these exiled outcasts. It's been our conversations behind the scenes. It started, be honest with you, when we talked about being friends with the devil. I was able to speak freely about my religion and my love for God. Thank you for giving me this opportunity to take back my courage to talk about a man who and I'll say it straight, I respect in Donald Trump. Thank you.
Yeah. And I'm the same way, like regarding this has been eye-opening for me to be more open, because I'll say this, probably if we started the show like back in the beginning and I was probably going to be hesitant to talk about this, but now I'm like telling people, even some of my podcast listeners, I'm like thinking, by the way, a cheap plug, give us 5 stars on Spotify. Anyway, but regarding all that was that, I was telling a few people, oh yeah, we're going to be talking about Donald Trump in a couple of weeks, the yada, yada, yada. I'm like me, probably a month or two ago, I would never even have brought that up or said that publicly. Yeah, go, yeah, we're going to be talking about that next on a future episode or something. For example, from my end.
Well, and again, like I'm telling you, I want everybody to understand. I speak passionately about the man because I respect Donald Trump. I voted for him. I'm going to vote for him again if he runs again. That's me.
Same.
That's me. I'm not saying that's Chayton. Chayton is nowhere near the fucking super conservative I am. Chayton doesn't go down rabbit holes and conspiracy theories. Chayton is just a good man who has an opinion. And if you vilify him for that, well, shame on you. How dare you? There was a time in society, and we've talked about it before, and again, I'm a broken record, where it was okay to have differing opinions. It was okay to be different. And I truly believe in my heart of hearts that the pendulum's swinging back, motherfuckers, that the time of people believing that they can have a voice is coming back. You wait till you see the shit we're going to talk about coming up, because this show is evolving all under the fucking guide of this man over here. I once said, people will follow you because they respect you, Chayton. And so will I. And you have led this house to what I like to think is a rebirth. And this particular episode is just the amalgamation of everything coming to fruition.
First I thought you were breathing heavily. I forget you're
Vaping.
Yeah. Yeah, like, that's the thing, It's and I'll openly admit, I like for the first time in my life, if I will probably vote as well once this goes on, because if he gets to that point, leading in, I guess, to recent events. Dan?
I'm trying to figure out how to word this.
Oh.
You said recent events.
Regarding the ratings and all this other stuff.
Regarding Trump and recent events, we have a guy who's running, who's probably got the fucking lead as far as the Republican side of the ticket, who's got 2 indictments on his ass. And I want to explain that. That means that the justice system has decided that he is worthy of charging of a crime. One said crime, the more important of these crimes, is withholding sensitive materials in his home in Mar-a-Lago. And I watched this live as it happened, because that liberal media was right there on the scene when a man's home was raided. Let's just call it what it was. Unfairly. And never in the history of this country has a former president, let alone a sitting president, had his fucking personal property run through. His lawyers couldn't be there. They tried to tell him to turn his cameras off, and they went and ransacked his fucking home. You know what's sick? They went through his wife's fucking underwear drawer. They went and they fucking they've tried to vilify this man. And all you end up doing is making him a victim of your sick fucking games. And that's how I feel as far as politics. You violated a man's personal space. Why? Because you don't like him. Meanwhile, you have an 80-something-year-old president sitting his lazy ass who can't be bothered to show up and do a full week's work. Oh, I got 4 days on, and then I got to go be Sleepy Joe and go to my house over here in Scranton or whatever, fucking Pennsylvania, whatever it is, I got to go. I got to take Camp David and go golfing. I don't know. I'm just tired. Can't even walk up some fucking stairs with a stiff wind blowing him over. That's your fucking messiah now? That's your hero? A guy who went on the fucking program with Charlemagne the God and told people, and people still don't know this and don't acknowledge it, told people on the radio program with Charlemagne the God, if you're not black, if you don't vote for me, you're not black. The same guy that sponsored the crime bill that put innocent men who had a little bit of weed on them in prison for 5 years, let alone his son, who's been busted with cocaine multiple times, gets off scot-free on a sweetheart deal and has to do probation. A man who's been linked back to quid pro quo Joe with Ukraine and China and Russia. Yet you wanted to fucking vilify Donald Trump and say that he was doing a quid pro quo in Ukraine when all he wanted was the truth. And he wasn't going to give military funding to Ukraine unless they gave him the truth. You try to take a phone call and turn it into something more. You impeach the man, not once, but twice. But he's the bad guy. I really want people to look at that. And again, this is coming from someone in me who's never been the type to just listen to one side. But he's the fucking villain. And I'm sorry, man. I know this is a joint program and that you're, but I'm sick of it.
You're good.
I'm sick of the fucking, of this, hypocrisy. I'm sick of the fucking idea that the DOJ under Joe Biden can go back and block a fucking laptop that was found to be true. Did you know that the fucking FBI had it 2 years before it came out? Did you know that? They knew that before he ran for president, that they had this laptop and they never talked about it because it was too dangerous for Joe. That they fucking used FISA warrants that were completely false. Hey, Christopher Steele, talking to you, dickhead. They use all this shit against him, and he's wrong for calling it out. Everything he's called out has come true. Going on fucking news and saying, I wish you would fucking question Joe Biden like you questioned me. All because what? He said Rosie O'Donnell was a fat hog? Or that he spoke his fucking mind and said he doesn't like something? Because he's not kissing ass? Because he doesn't need your fucking money? You want to bring up his bankruptcies and all the things he was able to get through because he used your fucking system to get through it? Don't get mad at him for playing the game. Hell, I would have done the same thing. He played the game that was placed before him, and he was smart enough to do it and showed everybody how to do it. But you get mad because your other donors do it. He just did it more blatantly and said, fuck you while doing it. But I'm supposed to bow down and say that Joe Biden is the greatest president of all time, that Joe Biden did this, when there's so much fucking inconsistency. How's that inflation working for you? How's your paycheck looking? How's gas? How is it getting fucking diapers off the fucking counter? Can't get milk, can't get fucking food, can't get meat. We're going to fucking Saudi Arabia and begging the fucking royalty there for fucking oil. We're going to Argentina and all these other places to get fucking from some of the most corrupt countries in the world. We have a fucking border that's open, and how much fentanyl's got through and how many people have been killed by it? How much human trafficking has been done? It didn't happen under fucking Trump. Russia didn't fucking invade Ukraine then. And let's not forget about the fucking lab in Wuhan that everybody's talking about that, oh, there's no way it was a leak. But now that the shit's coming out and it's real, what are you going to do? What are you going to do when the truth comes out and you're fucked? Who holds the bag then? Does Hunter hold the bag? Does Joe hold the bag? Does Kamala hold the bag? Who's going to clean up your fucking mess? Oh, yeah. The guy you vilified for 4 years, the guy you impeached twice, the guy with fucking orange face and blonde hair who speaks his mind and puts his foot in your ass and does the job that you can't fucking do. Sorry, I know I'm going on a tangent. It's just fucking, yeah. Again, I'm sorry. I shouldn't be talking.
Oh, no, you're good. You're good. If you're going overboard, I would have cut you off. I am the boss, damn it. But yeah, no, it's like, it's just how all this is with this whole thing with how they want to vilify him and all that stuff. Like I said, is he a perfect person? No. But nobody is. I'm just going to be point blank with that. You and I are perfect. Like, Joe ain't perfect. Nobody in the White House is perfect. That's the whole situation regarding this. And again, like, part of me, and again, kind of the conspiracy part, is I feel like they're only doing this to make sure he doesn't run again. I don't know what your thoughts on all that, but that's my opinion.
Absolutely. And then
because they deem him as a threat, because I could guarantee you they, like, even if he does win, they're going to try everything in their power to keep him from winning. I don't.
You want to hear you want to hear a fucking really out of left field fucking crazy theory? I think they're trying to build up fucking DeSantis to take his place, and DeSantis is just and I used to like DeSantis. But in the back of my mind, I can't shake it. He's got George Soros fucking giving him funding. Who the fuck? George Soros, one of the most corrupt sons of bitches on the left that you've ever fucking seen, and he's donating to fucking DeSantis? No, you have DeSantis as a proxy. You want DeSantis to take the place so you can have a Republican president with the fucking mind of a liberal that can be puppeteered. I like DeSantis. I like what he's done for Florida. I don't trust the motherfucker anymore. I don't trust him. I don't trust him because of what he could have done something about some of this. Say what you want about Trump, but guess who got fucking DeSantis elected? Donald Trump. One fucking speech. Oh yeah, I like Joe. I like DeSantis, and now he's talking shit about DeSantis because he says Ron DeSanctimonious spit in his face, and I agree with him. It's not DeSantis's time. It wasn't DeSantis's time. But enough money gets smashed in your face. Yeah, you're definitely going to hook a motherfucker up.
Oh, yes.
It is what it is. It's funny. They try to vilify Ice Cube because Donald Trump, Ice Cube reached out to the Democratic Party and said, hey, I'd like to work with y'all and try to talk to y'all about some of these policies. I'd like, to help the black community, to help minorities. And the Democrats were like, no, we're not interested. You know who was? Donald Trump. And Ice Cube got all kinds of shit because he had a meeting with Trump's people.
And look what happened also with Kanye.
That's not Kanye anymore. I don't believe it for a second. I don't know who the fuck that is, but that's not Kanye anymore.
Oh yeah. I couldn't believe that. Like watching it where he's sitting there with the hat and all that, him and Trump talking with all the cameras. I'm like thinking, what the fuck is going on? Like I'm like listening, because again I listened to Kanye back in like his music and all that stuff and the antics he did and all that. And I'm just looking at him. I'm like, what is going on?
The guy that we're seeing on TV now, because remember Kanye disappeared for a little while. I don't believe that's really him anymore. I'm not going to go down the realm and say, oh, it's a clone or this and that. But if you look at shit like fucking the MK Project and shit like that, there's so many fucking things. Like, look, brainwashing is a thing. The CIA does some very dirty shit. And look, man, if I don't show up for next week's fucking episode, you'll know why.
Shit, if I don't show up for next week.
I have this belief, and maybe I'm crazy, and maybe the audience is going to fucking hate my guts and say that, why do you fucking do a show with that piece of shit? He's a conspiracy theorist, this and that. You know what? I am. But they force me to be this way. You cannot beat on a dog and expect him not to bite you in your ass when you turn your back. And we as a people have been beaten on. There's a reason why we're suffering. During the fucking the race, Joe Biden said that he was not going to fuck with oil. That oil was the lifeline, the bloodline of this country. And the first thing he did when he stepped into office is cut off the Keystone XL pipeline. Joe Biden has done nothing in 4 years but fuck us. And if you don't fucking see it, then I feel like you're blind.
Yeah, I've even and I'm not the someone who watches continuously a lot of stuff that goes on around the world or all that. I've always been under the belief as long as it's not affecting me or people I care about, that's then let it burn. But I think probably the closest time I was actually invested was the Trump stuff, and then even when the pandemic happened, because we were basically with uncertainty regarding what's going on, and all we had was the media at that point. And so even now it's like you never I never hear anything remotely good that Biden has done. I don't really see any whether he continues onward or he doesn't after his term. I don't know anybody will how people are going to find a few things that he did that's going to be remembered for years on end. Like Trump, for better or for worse, will be remembered as more things to remember for as the president than fucking Joe Biden will, and that's a fact. And and I'll say this: Trump has more good things to remember him from his presidency than Joe Biden will. And again, I don't think that can be disputed.
I'm going to throw out a normal one of those things that people always talk about. You talked about Hillary and how much you can't stand her, right?
Yeah.
Donald Trump has been indicted twice for holding documents. One for holding documents. Hillary Clinton bleach bit and fucking destroyed thousands upon thousands of fucking emails off a private server that she did not have any fucking permission to have on a server that was fucking hacked on a server that had government secrets that people got a hold of. And you want to know what the fucking DOJ said? No prosecutor in their right fucking mind is going to prosecute Hillary Clinton. Oh, but they'll definitely prosecute Donald Trump. You kind of seeing a fucking two-way street here?
Yeah.
It's bullshit.
Again, I remember that. That was another reason why I didn't want to vote for her, because of the fact that she can't be trusted.
I have friends that are in the military. Love them. I will always be grateful for any serviceman, any woman, man, child, anybody that goes and serves this country. I always say, American by birth, Texan by the grace of God. I'll always say that this is the greatest country in the world because we are provided so many freedoms. If you want to hate somebody, if you want to hate this country, that's fine. You can hate this country. And you are given that right by the men and women who have died for this country. But I'm going to say one word as far as Hillary Clinton goes that I will never forgive her for. Benghazi. And those men that died, those service people that died in Benghazi, and she tried to lie to those family members. And it's much like I will never forgive Jesse Ventura for suing the fucking widow of Chris Kyle. How dare you? How dare you spit on the memories of these people? Now, we talk about Joe Biden. How dare you sit there and say that you had a gracious exit from Afghanistan when all of those dogs were left, all that military equipment, but more importantly, all of those men and women died. Not just fucking soldiers, but civilians raped and shot in the streets. But now Al-Qaeda's our buddy? Go fuck yourself. But I'm supposed to say, oh, that Joe Biden is great. Him and his alleged cokehead of a fucking son are so great. Please, tell me another lie.
We keep saying that. We'll have to start chanting CM Punk, CM Punk.
I know. I'm sorry to be so serious. I know that I'm very passionate about this, and I
get that, and it sounds like I second guess because I'm like, You know me, I always try to even in serious
you
topics, I
lighten the
try to add
situation.
levity to things.
You always add levity, and I love you for that. You know, like I'd probably be fucking yelling at this point if it wasn't for you. You keep me. Again, I want to make it clear, like the things that Chayton does for me on a personal level, as far as keeping me measured. And I talked to a friend of mine. You know him. He's very controversial. Won't go into names, but he asked me straight up, and I haven't even told you this yet. This is live right here from you and I talk about. He said, why do you feel it is your duty to protect Chayton and to look out for Chayton and try to give him advice? And I had an answer for the first time. Because I wasn't there for you when I needed to be. And I can sit here and say, oh, well, you had to do your penance and you had to do this. And the fact is, that's bullshit. I wasn't there for you when you needed me, and I will never make that mistake again. I don't care how much I was personally hurt. I don't care how much whatever happened. You're a good man. You're a good person. You're stronger than you give yourself credit for. And in a time where you could have vilified me, you could have put out personal secrets, you could have put out my own information, you could have gone on any of those streams you were on back then and made me out to be a piece of shit. You didn't. And even beyond that, in a time where somebody else was vilifying me, way back when we first met, I need you all to hear me, and I want you to turn the volume up a little bit. I want you to hear this. When no one else, when nobody else on these communities, these platforms, and nobody else would give me, even a close personal friend of ours who I love like a little brother, even that time, and I'll still love him, gave me the opportunity to speak my piece. You didn't even know me, and you gave me the chance to defend myself, which ultimately turned out to be the catalyst for our friendship. And when you needed me the most, I wasn't there. And I am sorry, and I'm saying it publicly so everybody can hear it. So this is not me, Dan, DXP, Danny Experience, whatever the fuck moniker I go by, Panda Man, whatever the fuck you want to call me. This is me, the person, Dan, telling Chayton, my friend, should have been there for you. And I'm sorry. Thank you for giving me this, because even now you keep giving and you keep giving. And I hope that any of my grit and my strength has rubbed off on you, because I was weak when you were strong then. So thank you.
And thank you as well for like I've said this publicly or privately that you've been, whenever I feel like something's going on or something, or even if it's mentally, I always reach out to you and all that. So as my mom is, whenever I talk to my mom about you, she gets annoyed when I bitch you. I'm like, oh yeah, I talked to Dan talking about this. I said, because I'll say this before we wrap things up. I had somebody who I won't name, but he was somebody that I knew for probably it's been like 6 or 7 years, and I considered him a good friend. We did work together. We did this, that, but I considered him my best friend at the time, but he's a very distant individual, especially with stuff he does. Nothing bad, just that type of stuff. And he and anytime that I feel like I needed him or I needed to talk to about something and all that, wasn't there. Was only there when it was convenient for him. And even though, on the other hand, if he needed someone to talk to, even when we first met, I was there listening to his relationship issues or whatever. I was there listening to him and helping him get through it and all that. If he needed to call me, I was right there then and there. Like, I'll give him this. He got me. He was one of the main catalysts to get me out of a certain relationship I was in. And all that, because he knew where it was going to head if I didn't get out sooner. And at that time, I didn't have anybody really to be that rock to tell me, hey, you should, all that. But I think I've told you this privately. I consider you my best friend because unlike that person, who again I have nothing but like I don't hate him or anything like that. We just drifted apart and all that. And like if ever I've needed to talk to you about something, whether it's in a message or a call, you'll make whatever effort you can to be there and all that.
You never told me that behind the scenes, but you're
Oh,
probably
I didn't. Okay, so
you're one of my. Clearly, Trips is my best friend. I can't take that from her.
Well,
but,
yeah. I get
you,
that.
I want, and like I said, I'll tell everybody here, you're probably one of my best friends in the world. Like I can't, and it's crazy. There's their adage that you can't have friends on the line, and you can't do this, and it's hard. And I have argued with you. I have cried with you. I have shared some of the most intimate details of my life with you, and you have always been there. I treasure your friendship more than you'll ever know. And again, I know we get off on tangents in this. We talk about, like, again, this is one of those real moments, right? We do that here. And this is something I've been passionate about. And, I just to give y'all an understanding of like how the format of the show goes. And we've said it before. We'll talk about stuff. I'll throw ideas. We can do that, or no, we I don't know about that. But this is one of those ones, as far as the political side, that I put it up there and you said, "Fuck yeah." And I don't know if, I guess you said a couple of years ago you would have had the balls to do it. Maybe you would have. You've always been a pretty ballsy guy.
Yeah, I just talked about Jonah Hill's situation a couple of days ago. So
I did catch part of that. Yeah, I wish I was awake. I wish I was actually caught that while I was at work.
Yeah, I was debating on the save it, but I'm like, this is become a hot topic. I kind of want to see where we're and all that. And I was like, yeah, I even had a discussion with a friend of mine, a female who's believes he's a misogynist. So we were having a little debate about that. And I told her, shit, if you weren't on like if I wasn't worried about getting you on a channel, like because some of these people on here. I said I wouldn't mind actually having you on here so we could have a debate about this from two opposite sides because I thought that would be a good conversation. But yeah, unfortunately, especially in some of the communities I've pondered in, like they see a woman, they're sitting there jerking off because it's like they never saw a woman before. But
I think that you and I will probably talk about this because right now we're recording this before we go live, which we should be going live any moment after this, right?
Yeah,
we'll probably bring up that shit.
Yeah, definitely.
But yeah, like and I know we do that again. We get off on tangents, but like I said, I look at this guy, and I see a lot of similar. And again, I'm not being facetious. I'm being straightforward. From the man's work ethic to his ballsy fucking character to the way he doesn't give a fuck. He's gonna do what he thinks is the right thing, and you can hate his guts and you can vilify him. But I see a lot of you in our former president in the sense that you are a fucking leader, just like he is a leader. And yeah, he's going to make mistakes because we're fucking human, but he doesn't run from those mistakes. Similar to you, you don't run from those mistakes. And maybe that's one of the reasons why, like you and I are we're, in all honesty, you and I are very opposite. People don't seem to realize that, but it takes a caliber of human being, not a man, but a human being to fucking do and have the balls to stand on principle and do these things. And it takes a caliber of human being to be buried under shit and be vilified and be called the devil, for lack of a better term, and rise out of the pits of avarice like a fucking phoenix to become what you are now. And I look at, I'm sitting here looking at this new fucking setup we have, and I've never been so thrilled to work on a project and a program with somebody and try to make it better. I don't make it better for me. I don't give two shits about myself. My concerns are my job, my woman, and my life. But this is important to me because I owe you that. Just like I think this country owes this man the respect he deserves. I didn't think that this was going to go off into a tangent where I compare fucking Chayton to Donald Trump. No, I didn't. And if you look at them as people, you wouldn't fucking see it. Other than that, but I'm looking at this picture that I made on an AI program to try to get your best features to get, so we can match up on this shit. I'm looking at this motherfucking thing, and I look at a fucking stern face, and I look at the stern face behind ours, and I look at a guy who's not done yet. Much like my friend, one of my best friends, who I sit here and talk to, who deserves the fucking world, is not done yet. And boys and girls watching, stay tuned, because this is the premiere. This is the premiere group. This is the premiere faction, if you will, of what should be talked about, what should be done. And I hope that hate me. Don't hate him. Hate me. Love him. But you're listening, and it inspires you to be better. Because if you can't hear the fucking passion in my voice, if you can't hear the fucking brilliance behind his ideas, this is him. There would be no Exiled Outcast if it wasn't for Chayton Long. There would be no conversations. There would be no fucking unity. You made, we talked about it, and I'm not trying to take credit for anything like that, because you and him talked. You made peace with what people would call your mortal enemy because you're a good man, because you knew it was the right thing. You know who else made peace with people that they would call America's enemies? Donald fucking Trump. There's a lot of him and you, and in this small branch of this community, and you continue to be that leader that I'm glad to follow. And again, I'm sorry getting all sappy with the bullshit, whatever, but that's just how I feel. So I'll let you do what you do, and I'll just sit back and hit my vape. Fuck you.
But and that's like we're gonna have a up and coming. We're gonna have some interesting topics in the coming weeks regarding the episodes. We will have another one next week, which I still need to do some research on. Some of these that we've done, I'm not 100% informed of, but there's stuff that I want to maybe go into and learn more about it. I still got to watch that video, by the way. I've got a few extra days off, so like today and tomorrow, so I'm gonna watch it this week. But we have you know more about this individual than I do right now. Do you want to give like us a tease of what the next topic's going to be?
This is the way I'll put it. Never judge a book by its cover. Some people know her as Girl-Lack the Destroyer. I know her as Alweezy. She is a transgender female who has been mocked and criticized, who has been made fun of because of her confidence and the idea that she thinks she can have any man in the world. And looking from the outside in, you could see that maybe, just maybe, she's full of shit. Bullshit, as the memes go. But maybe, just maybe, if you open that book, no different to my counterpart over here, you'll see something a little more deep. And I'll leave it at that.
And yeah, there's similarities too, because like I kind of have that same thing where all that. I'm not the most fit individual in the world. Plus the confidence. Hey, who doesn't have the confidence to do a video while he's in the shower and tell people how to look good? Still some of my best work. I may have to do a part 2 to that one day. But yes. So with that being said, guys, I hope you all enjoyed this very passionate, very heartfelt episode of Exiled Outcast. We will see you all next week with the also update for everybody. Check out the Terrifier review that we did for Exiled Entertainment, but also it will be, as of the recording of this video, it will be on Spotify. I've decided to boot that up. It became available for podcast listeners early on this past Wednesday due to the release of the film in theaters. And yes, so we'll be discussing that, and we'll listen to us talk about that and look forward to us talking about the sequel a little bit later. Plus, I do have another idea for another movie, but it's 3 hours. But part of me does want Dan to see it. We'll talk about that behind the scenes. But with that being said, I am, of course, Chayton.
I'm Dan.
And we will see you all next time. Ta-ta for now.